I love tambak overlanders.
I love tambak overlanders.
I love tambak overlander.
I love tambak overlanders.
I love tambak overlanders.
I love tambak overlanders.
I love tambak overlanders. 3.
I love tambak overlanders. I love tambak overlanders.
Thank you, Farhan. I love tambak overlanders.
What's up guys, Farhan here and we're back at Auto Exchange. As you can see, they got a huge lineup of bikes right now because they recently made a huge purchase, and today of course we are going to review one of their new bikes that just came in. Whoa! Wow, Lari, what's this? Hey! You want to wheelie the Super Cup ah?
Soft wheelie.
Soft wheel
Soft wheelie.
This one legend, no, this bike. This bike the Super Cup is the original Kapchai, you know. Also can say every Kapchai in the world is thanks to this Super Cup lah.
Yeah.
Wah, power lah bro. Yes. And of course we're going to review it and don't forget guys, they'll use the promo code I love tambak overlanders
Yes.
for 15% discount
Yes. Still
Yeah.
ongoing, guys.
Still ongoing. So just come here and see Hadi, see Zul and message them to see the availability of the bikes, and maybe you can just rent the Super Cup also lah. So we'll see you guys in a bit. Hey guys, so welcome back to another ultimate review. This is the review of the Honda Super Cup C125. So this bike by itself is a legend. A legend in a sense in which this bike basically revolutionized the underbone or the Kapchai segment. This is the bike that started all. I mean, even the word Kapchai is actually adapted from the Honda Super Cup. So this bike, as you can see, is a very retro, old school design, but it has somewhat modern cues. It's somewhat cleaned up as opposed to the original, but basically most of the shape, the size and the general design is really from the original. It didn't stray too much lah. Okay, so sitting on the bike right now, the fuel tank is 3.7 liters with a projected range of 250 kilometers, and I must say, wow, it's really a fuel saving and fuel economy bike, this Honda Cup. So it still uses the same 125cc engine that has been like with Honda for like many years now. Even the Chinese bikes copied this engine. It's known for its reliability, and you can throw whatever at it, it will still work. Even most of the Kapchais are still powered by this engine. The Honda Monkey MSX 125 even uses this engine. Starting up, pretty straightforward. Okay, it uses a transponder, surprisingly. It doesn't use a key. Okay, turn the ignition dial and the gauge cluster comes to life. Starting up. Right, let's get out of here. Oops, it's still in neutral. So push down to gear 1. No clutch, it's a semi-automatic transmission. And of course, if you guys are very familiar with Kapchais and how they operate, the Honda Super Cup operates very similar lah. To move up the gear, you push down with your ball of your foot. Push down the gear, you push down your heel lah. It's not unlike a typical conventional motorcycle lah, but I think generally here in Southeast Asia, riders especially who are well versed in Kapchais or have the Kapchai as their first bike, they would definitely know how to operate this thing. But internationally, in the UK, in the US, when I was researching about this bike, right, the reviewers over there, they are very surprised about this bike. I mean, they think of it as an old school kind of machine, but actually even until now, they still retain this 4-gear automatic, semi-automatic transmission. It's not as common in other countries, unlike the developing markets, and here in Singapore, many riders, I would assume, know how to operate a Kapchai lah. And for me, I have a AX5 at home, a Malaysian registered EX5. I somewhat appreciate what a Kapchai can do. It's a very convenient bike. It's something that you can take a short ride, you know, and it goes the same for the Honda Cup lah. This is what the Honda Cup is supposed to be lah. That bike the delivery guys will use for your daily commute through and from work, go to the shop, is that bike you bring from point A to point B lah. And the legacy continues with this modern rendition of the Honda Cup and Honda has been producing this bike continuously since 1958. I think Honda still wanted to keep the legend alive, and it is legendary in its own right. If you appreciate the history and know about this bike, then you will definitely see it as a legend. Other than that, as you look at it as a bike by itself, it's really just a normal Kapchai with a retro design. It's a very practical bike, very nimble, very agile, leans in corners where you point the bike to. It's not a fast bike. I think maximum I can ride with this bike is like 80 to 90. Above 90 it really starts to like struggle, you know. And surprisingly, the pickup upon launch is very fast. But other than that, top speed, nah. But I mean, it's a 125cc, what do you expect? And of course, this bike is actually a single seater, and there are accessories for you to put an additional seat. But I'm not sure whether it's legal or not here in Singapore, given that it's built as a one-seater bike. I think you'll need to get approval if you were to put a second seat on it. I'm not sure. Do check with the relevant authorities on this lah. I'm really not sure.
The Honda Super Cup C125 was first introduced in 2018 as a modern interpretation of the classic Honda Super Cup of 1958. When first introduced in the United States, the Super Cup redefined the culture of motorcycling, which was stereotyped with a negative bad boy image to a positive gentleman's ride with the slogan, "You'll meet the nicest people on a Honda." In Southeast Asia, the Honda Super Cup influenced the region, with the underbone class of bikes being the main staple of transport of the region, including Singapore. The nickname of such bikes, affectionately known as Kapchais, is derived from the Honda Super Cup. Since 1958, over 100 million Honda Cups have been sold, becoming the best-selling vehicle of all time. Today, the current generation of Honda Super Cup has been modernized to leverage on current riding technology, but has very much retained its iconic exterior. Engine is shared with the Honda Pocket series of bikes, the MSX125 and the Monkey, a 124cc air-cooled 4-stroke 2-valve SYEC with electronic fuel injection and a 4-speed semi-automatic transmission. So doing this portion in the voiceover because apparently there's some issues with the mic while recording this video, so just bear with it lah. Anyway, let's start off with the design. Okay, very much it has a classic and retro look to it, very close to the original 1958 Honda Super Cup. From the leg shields to the fenders to the seat, its general shape, etc. But I feel that for this current generation of Super Cup, they've cleaned up the design a bit and refreshed it, and it's slightly updated with modern cues lah. However, comparing it with other modern Kapchais of today like the RS150R, Honda Wave, and even the EX5 for example, they've really evolved over the years. And the Honda Super Cup C125 is really a throwback to how it was back then.
And as with all Kapchais, the Honda Super Cup is fitted with a toe and heel gear level. So basically, when I see reviews from overseas like the US or the UK for example, they find it weird in the modern era lah. But for us in Southeast Asia, like in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, it's quite common to see this sort of gear level configuration on this semi-automatic Kapchais lah, or underbone bikes. And there's also a legend behind this toe and heel gear level. It's because Honda engineers didn't want riders to scuff their shoes while changing gears. So given that people used to wear sport shoes back then, right, changing gears, like going up, right, you can scuff the front of your shoes. But I think this really helps to preserve your shoes in some way lah. As with most of the semi-automatic Kapchais, the Honda Super Cup doesn't come with a clutch lever as well. So really reminds me of those bikes that is fitted with a quick shifter. So makes the clutch lever a bit useless lah on the bike. And basically the operation is simple. You just step on the toe and heel gear lever to change the gear lah, and you need to throttle down while doing this because or else there's gonna be a jerk, you know, when you're changing gears. And according to folklore or legend, it makes it easier for delivery riders to operate the bike one-handed lah. But please keep both hands on the handlebars lah when you're riding. Right, so we've come to the handlebar control. So as you can see on the Super Cup, basically it's simple and straightforward, nothing much. Very much a typical Kapchai setup over here. On the left over here, there's the high beam, low beam, no flash button also, the horn, signal indicators, and to the right, there's a starter lah, and no kill switch also. It is what it is. And typically for Kapchai, the fuel cap is always under the seat. So usually Kapchais will have a keyhole over here or something, right, so that you can lift up the seat. But for the Super Cup, in order to maintain the nice retro lines on the bike, right, there's no keyhole for you to put the key in to access the underseat storage. So what Honda has done, there is a hidden button underneath the seat over here. You press it and you can open the seat. There's a fuel cap access, and there's also a hidden button over here to access the battery compartment. But the battery compartment in this case is where the Honda Super Cup store its tools and manual. For some reason the manual on this bike is missing. So even though it has a retro design and throwback look, very much the placement of certain things such as the battery has been changed on the modern era Super Cup. And also let's talk about the gauge cluster, which is a combination of LCD and analog. So the analog displays the speedometer, and the digital side has the fuel gauge, the gear indicator, the odometer, and also the time and also a cluster of warning lights in this round retro design. And basically you can toggle the LCD screen to display the odometer, trip A, trip B, and that's it. No tachometer unfortunately, but with this bike I don't think you're gonna redline it too much with the speeds that the Super Cup is able to handle. And given that it's currently 2022, of course the modern era Honda Super Cup has to adapt with the times and have some modern riding tech on it Keyless transponder, so you don't really need a physical key to start the bike or open any storage or whatsoever. LED lighting all around, and also ABS is an option for the Honda Super Cup. This bike unfortunately doesn't come with ABS And speaking of brakes, there's a single rotor with Nissin caliper in the front and a drum brake at the rear. A very rare thing nowadays, drum brake on a modern era bike. So horn check for the Honda Super Cup. I think there's something wrong with the horn. Yeah, maybe it's low in battery, I guess. So the colors that the Honda Super Cup comes with, the one being reviewed right now is called the Pearl Nebula Red, which is this two-tone cream and beautiful red color on it. There's also Pearl Niltava Blue and Pearl Shining Black. And finally the price, and given the current COE prices right now, of course, even for a Honda Cup like this, it's expensive. Okay, so we got one 2019 registered for 13,900, a black one being sold for 12,880, and recently we have one being registered on May 2021 for $14,000 Honda Bunsiu officially did not bring in the Honda Super Cup into Singapore, so of course all of the warranty and the after sale support would lie with the individual bike shops that bring in this bike.
I think by modern standards, this bike really lags far behind. I mean, its purpose is to cater to a niche customer base, in which for riders who appreciate the Honda Cup and its history, even Kapchai riders, I don't think they are really keen to consider the Honda Super Cup, given that it's impractical. There's no second seat, and I would reckon that accessories for it, there are actually a lot of accessories, I've researched about it, but if you want to put a box on it, accessorize on it, it will look really ugly. It's going to spoil the lines of the bike and it will not go well with the bike. But other Kapchais like the Honda Wave RS 150R, I think that will go well with all kinds of accessories out there But if you were to put the same accessories on this bike, it's definitely going to spoil the lines on it. I'm not sure whether there are mounting points
available, you know, to put the box and windshield, etc. But there is an aftermarket windshield for this you can put, which really matches the aesthetic, but it looks ugly to my personal opinion. Oops, gear 3. No wonder so slow. So you need to adjust the gears every time lah, because this doesn't have a clutch. So at any gear you can stop the bike. It wouldn't stall at all, so you have to put in the first gear or neutral whenever you're in a traffic light or something lah. I'm certainly not used to riding a Kapchai, even though I myself have an EX5 at home which handles very similarly. The EX5, from what I know, is really derived from the original Honda Super Cup. It came out in the 80s and is squared off design, so it really looks something out of the 80s. But Honda Malaysia continued to produce the bike till I think last year or last 2 years, in which they stopped producing the EX5 due to emission regulations. But we are going to do an ultimate review on my EX5 in Malaysia. Actually, the pickup is damn good, man, upon launch from the traffic light, because I think it's light, and Honda has refined the bike over the years. It uses fuel injection now. I feel very weird operating without a cup, because when you want to gear down, there's gonna be a jerk like this, you know. So I prefer an automatic transmission or something with clutch as opposed to this. Given that it's a commuter bike, you know, riding on city streets, slow moving traffic, start-stop situations, no issue at all. This bike is really built as a commuter bike, and given its small nature, you can lane split pretty easily in between cars like this. Yeah. Okay, so in fifth gear, do remember to change your gears. Not really happy that this bike doesn't have a tachometer. I wish it had a tachometer so that we can see the bike redlining. But I reckon that it couldn't go fast at all. I mean, above 80, anything above 80 or 90, this bike struggles considerably. So you can really feel it trying to, like, please slow down, bro, I'm not made for this speed. The mirrors are a little small. I wish that the mirrors are slightly bigger, but they have to keep the aesthetic, right? So they opted to use a round mirror instead. It very much feels like a typical Kapchai, you know. Nothing much to complain about it. I think new riders, beginner riders would appreciate the way this bike handles. It's really easy. I think veteran riders who want to go back to riding Class 2B bikes, they can consider the Honda Cup. And of course, when you're riding it at high speeds like this, not even high speeds lah, we're at 70 now. No windshield in front of you, so you're feeling the full force of the wind. But given that this bike can't even go that fast, I think there's no issue with it lah. It's not meant to go fast, guys. And I appreciate that Honda really wanted to keep the legend alive by continuing to produce the Honda Cup, you know, even until now. But this bike really caters to a niche of riders. Right, so we're gonna go into the highway now and see how the Honda Cup performs and does on the highway. But I would reckon that I'll be staying in the leftmost lane for most of the time. So when I was doing my research on the Honda Cup, it's actually sold all over the world, even the UK, the US, and over there in the Western countries, they're very much surprised on the bike's operation and how the bike is overall, you know, given that they are so not used to this kind of Kapchai bikes over there. But I think for us, it's like, okay, it's a Kapchai bike, what do you expect, right? Of course, at 80 right now, and I don't think that I want to go above 90, because this bike really doesn't want. This bike, you can feel it struggling considerably.
when you're trying to go above 90. You know, you can feel the handlebar vibrating like crazy, and the wind resistance also. So I don't feel like it's safe to go above 80. This reminds me just like Za's Vespa, you know, in which Za usually loves to go like 70 or 80 on it. You can really feel the wind resistance on this bike, and the suspension doesn't do too well. You can really feel every bump, every road imperfection, every road marking. But with the available accessories on the Honda Cup, you can make the necessary upgrades to make it perform better lah, or even looking aesthetically more pleasing, I guess. So I told you that you'll be staying on the leftmost lane most of the time. I don't even dare to go to lane 1, man. But I think riders who had the Honda Cup previously in the 70s or 80s, my guess is that they will appreciate such a bike like this, you know, a retro bike with modern features and still looking like what they did 30-40 years ago, you know. And for some reason there's this resurgence in retro culture and all that. But for me, comparing it with my EX5 at home and this, I would ride my EX5. This bike has its shortcomings despite its legendary status. But if you're looking for something that is aesthetically nice and you appreciate the Honda Cup's or Cup Chai's history, you can consider the Honda Cup lah. But for me, having ride other bikes before, I'll definitely give it a pass lah. I'm gonna give you guys my final thoughts and conclusions on the Honda Super Cup, and we'll see you guys in a bit.
Right, so once again, some issues with the mic for this portion, so I'm just going to do this in a voiceover format. Let me give you guys my final thought and conclusions on the bike lah. So basically, overall, I would think that the Super Cup, the bike itself, the way it handles, the way it performs, is just like a typical Cup Chai. I myself have a Honda EX5 in Malaysia, and it really handles somewhat similar. And if you look at it as a bike from that angle, it's just another Cup Chai on the road. Basically a bike that gets you from point A to point B. But to really appreciate the Honda Super Cup C125, you really have to know about its history. It came out at a time when bikers evoke a bad boy image. This bike, the Super Cup itself, it revolutionized the gentleman and moped bike culture. Because of the Honda Super Cup, here in Southeast Asia, we wouldn't have the Cup Chais roaming around today. We wouldn't have legendary bikes like the Honda EX5, Honda Wave, Yamaha LC or Sniper, and even the copycats like the SYM E-Bonus. In my personal opinion, the Honda Super Cup is not for everyone, because there's better Cup Chais out there with better performance and features like the Yamaha Sniper or the Honda RS 150R. The Honda Super Cup is much more of a statement and a continued legacy of its beginnings. And it really takes a rider who knows and appreciates its history in order to own one. So yeah, that's it for the vlog. Which thanks to Auto Exchange for loaning me this bike for the review. You can get in touch with them if you want to rent this bike, and also they have a whole range of bikes to rent. Don't forget to use our promo code I Love Tambak Overlanders for a 15% discount. And that's it for the review, and we will see you guys in the next one.
I make it